Today we will be discussing one of the 12 attributes of God, one of the 12 essential attributes that make him who he is, and this attribute is called eternal. God is eternal. When Moses was speaking with God at the burning bush, and he's asking, who are you? Who is this voice speaking to me? And God responded, I am that I am. And then later in the New Testament, Christ said the same thing. He said, before Abraham was, I am. It kind of sounds like double talk. It sounds like a funny way to describe yourself, is just to say, I am that I am. But what God is saying is, I am the one who exists. And he's the only one that can say that. I exist. Yes, you exist and I exist, but we had a beginning point where we started and we exist now. We could say that about ourselves. But God is the only one who can claim, I just exist. I'm the one who has always existed. There hasn't ever been a time that I haven't existed. And that's what God is saying there when he says, I am that I am. Now, to understand eternity, it's kind of hard to wrap your brain around this because we live in a time environment. We live in an environment where there's a beginning to something and an end to it. So infinity is kind of a hard concept to grasp, I think, sometimes. But if we look at infinity in space, if you were to get into a rocket ship and travel in one direction, never stopping, and you had unlimited fuel, you'd never reach a place where you had to stop, where there was nothing else. You could always keep going further and further and further in that one direction and never stop. And even if you reached a boundary, what's the boundary made of and what's beyond the boundary? But you could go infinitely in any direction and keep going and never reach an ending. It's infinite. So we know that infinity exists. It exists in space. Well, God, his infinity is in his existence. He exists in infinity. He never had a beginning. He shall never have an end. And if God is eternal, and he is, and he made all things, then there must have been a time where he existed in the universe all alone by himself before he made anything. Because we can take all the matter in the universe and put an age on it, and I don't know how accurate the dating is now, but everything has an age that we can measure. But God doesn't have an age. He's just existed always. He's not dependent on anyone or anything for his existence. We are dependent on him for our existence because he made us. And if we go back and back and back and back in time, there was a time where he existed all alone in space by himself before he created anything. Now, I have kind of a diagram here to help us understand what we're talking about here today. And you see on the top there I have finite. And that's something that has a beginning and has a definite ending. And your life and my life on this earth as a human being is finite. We had a definite beginning, and we shall have an ending as far as our life, our existence on this earth is. A definite beginning, a definite ending, depending on how long you stay on this earth, but that is finite. Now, on the bottom here I have permanent. You as a person, your spirit, who you really are, is permanent. You had a definite beginning right here at this point, and then I have a line here that goes to infinity here, just an arrow going and continuing in your existence. Your spirit shall exist forever. Okay? It will never have an ending. It did have a beginning, but it shall never have an ending, and you'll end up in one of two places in your existence, in spirit. But of course our bodies are finite. Our life upon this earth has a definite beginning and ending. Now I have, for eternal, for God, I have drawn a circle here. And no beginning, no ending. You see, a circle is just, there's no beginning point or stopping point. It just is. And God he exists. He is eternal. I'm going to give you two statements here, and they're really pretty simple, and they make a lot of sense here. Here's the first one. If there were ever a time when nothing existed in the universe, then there would always be nothing. Think about that. If there were ever a time in the universe where there was absolutely nothing in it at all. No matter, no nothing, no Spirit of God or anything. Totally empty. Would there ever be anything? And the answer, of course, is no, there wouldn't. And here's the second statement. If anything exists at all in the universe, and it does, of course, then there must be something that always existed. All right? If anything exists at all in the universe, there must be something that always existed, or how did everything get here? The first cause is God. And that's why the Bible says the fool says there is no God, because the question isn't really, is there a God? But how can there not be a God? How could it be possible for there not to be a God? A being that has existed forever and ever, and who has always existed eternally. And it doesn't really take any faith to believe that. That's just kind of common sense if you think about it for a minute. And once you realize that God has always existed independently, He's not dependent upon you or me or angels or His creation or anything for His existence. He exists because He exists. I am that I am. And He's the only one that can claim that. When you realize that, and that He made everything, and then He made it for Himself, it's really a humbling experience when you can really just kind of understand that, and the lights go on and you realize God is eternal. He's always existed, and He made us. And He made us spirits with free moral choice, that we might choose Him by free choice and follow Him and have a love relationship with Him on this earth, to be transformed into the moral image of Jesus Christ, and then to spend our eternity. Remember, we are permanent. We shall never have an ending. That's how we're like God. We're similar to Him in that way, that we will have no ending. He wants us to be able to spend that permanent existence in Him, in His eternity again in heaven, when He ends time, and time will be no more. The Bible says that. I want to end with an illustration. I don't have what I was going to have with me today, but my wife has an iPhone that I bought her. She loves it. Really amazing piece of technology. And I'm just going to use this guitar tuner here, and we're just going to call it the iPhone. Okay? Imagine you're floating around in space, and there's nothing, just blackness and darkness, nothing. And all of a sudden you see a light far away, and it gets closer and closer and closer and closer, and it comes up, and you reach out and grab it, and it's an iPhone. And you get on there and you look at it, you got email, it's a phone, you can check, you can watch YouTube videos, you can do all kinds of cool stuff on the iPhone. You're just flipping through it and using all the features on it. And then I asked you, who made this? Well, no one made it. It's just always been here. No one made it. It just exists. It's here. And it just kind of came together, and there's no reason or rhyme for it. And how ridiculous would that answer be? Would you accept that as a satisfactory answer? Well, we know someone made this iPhone. Someone did. Someone designed it, put a lot of hard work into making it. How much more complex is our universe and the atom? A design demands a designer. If there's a house, then there had to be a builder. If there's a clock, there had to be a clock maker. How much more complex is the universe than this iPhone? And we still allow the idea to go around that there's no God. There's no one who designed it all. There's no one who made it. It's just always been here. Well, I'll tell you, God, there is something that's always been here, and it is God, and that is His attribute of eternity, or eternal. And He's the only one who can claim that. And when we realize that, we really have a good foundation to begin to know and understand and perceive God as He really is. And that's what these videos are all about. God bless.